Hi everyone, please subscribe to the channel. Thank you, I really appreciate it. It's pretty clear that the war is escalating. If it was bad yesterday, it's much worse today. And we have to say that on some level, Trump has met his match in terms of messaging concerted action, since Musk today has tweeted many times and with plenty of extremely inflammatory statements, among which the Epstein accusation, which, by the way, has a very decent chance of being totally true, just on what we know, and the fact that many of the MAGA followers actually believe that something is being hidden. It's not exactly playing to Trump's advantage. And predictably, as the president has become more and more angry, he is threatening to take away Musk's contracts, and Musk has already replied, fine, if you do that, here's my next move. He'll cancel the Dragon X, he'll decommission it or whatever. So, I mean, it's now broken out into a borderline nuclear war. And when you look at the astrology, first of all, if you're looking up really close, you'd have to leave a little bit of room for what I said yesterday in regard to that Jupiter being at the very end of Gemini, crossing through their composite sun, which, to be honest, I don't think is going to do anything positive. An interesting thing I noticed in the composite is that the Jupiter in the composite squares the ascendant, which makes it a more problematic Jupiter in that sense. So usually that wouldn't be enough to spoil a Jupiter conjunction to anything. But with these two, because of what is happening in their respective individual charts, it's also true that the Jupiter through there probably will not save this relationship. But say we left a little bit of room for that, maybe, but you start to see more and more indicators that no such thing is going to happen. For example, Mars is already squaring Trump's midheaven degrees, which is why he's getting hotter and hotter under the collar. Although, keep in mind, this guy is nowhere near the testosterone levels he was at even in 2020, much less in 2016. And so he's never going to be as effective as he used to be with that kind of bravado and that kind of super aggressive response to things. But you look at the Mars, you look at where it is, and you look at also the fact that from here into the third week of the month, it travels in a zone that is going to increase the belligerence and the anger at whatever level he's able to deploy. And all of that doesn't really help, to be honest, because you know that in the bigger picture, it's the Jupiter cycle. It's leaving, it's going into Cancer. And so if we look at the near term, and we realize that basically the summer most intensely would be, let's say, midsummer, which is when Jupiter is conjoining Musk's sun energy and moving toward his ascendant, while it's in a very dicey spot for the Orange Menace, because it's in that T-square part of his chart, which I have seen repeatedly over the years. He doesn't get good results, and certainly not winning results. And so you can guess that probably the biggest danger to him right now is that Musk will probably get enough traction to seriously set that big, beautiful abomination of a bill back and force major adjustments to what they're trying to do. And that would actually, I think, be good for us, for the country, for everyone, because they are doing something that is quite horrible when you're transferring tons and tons of money from the poor to the rich, and you are increasing the debt exponentially. That's just not a good idea. And so, to the extent that that's what happens, wonderful. I think it's great. By the way, don't get any ideas that I, in any way, approve of either of these people. I don't. But like I said yesterday, this is like it's like a sport. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. I'll work with anything that improves the situation in any way, shape, or form. And there's also another risk here to the current president, the thing around the tariffs, because we already know from prior comments that Musk has made that he doesn't like the tariffs. Whatever is wrong with this guy, and there's plenty, there's no question, we can list all the problems, but I can tell you that he's almost certainly better at business and at math, especially at math. At business now it's becoming a little more questionable because you wonder about this whole adventure and the damage he's done to his stock and all the rest, but he knows his math and he understands economics better than Trump, no question. And so he's said, these tariffs, we don't need to have tariffs with Europe. There should be no tariffs. They're a stupid idea. And so he may start working on that. And this would also be very threatening to Trump. But the thing is, he has a lot of people on his side who are currently on the sidelines who don't want to speak against Trump. And I'm talking about in the Republican Party, who may side with him and, again, potentially push that back, because even if we say, okay, well, this guy is putting in these tariffs, he's going to damage the economy, that's good from the perspective of damaging him and MAGA and eventually getting them out. Well, that's true, but the damage that it inflicts on the country is horrible as well, because it's going to rebound to the poverty of many people or to the discomfort of many people economically. So it's really not a good idea. So anything that can be brought into play that puts a brake on this guy, I think is a good thing. And if you look at the astrology, to me it's clear as can be that in terms of a battle between these two in the summer of 2025, Musk has the advantage. He doesn't have it later, but by later really I mean probably more next year really, because as we go beyond the summer, it doesn't really improve for Trump that much. In fact, it can get even worse, because the journey of Saturn and Neptune a little bit as well into the late degrees of Pisces in the retrograde motion, that complicates things for him. And I still continue to say that a lot of that economic fallout from whether there are tariffs there or the constant changing of, in and out policies and so forth, they'll tend to bear fruit at that point. And then as we go into next year, then both of them are in all kinds of trouble from the Saturn cycle. But right now that's a little bit too far away to get proper visibility. We have to let it unfold a little more to see how things are likely to manifest. And then, if I switch to the more immediate, like as in tomorrow, there, the moon where it is, you see the moon is in late Libra tomorrow, and this is the other part of Trump's chart, well actually three places where he can suffer. The greatest of these would be the T-square that I've talked about over the years a lot, the infamous Access Hollywood T-square, that was first revealed in October of 2016 through the Access Hollywood bus and all that. Then the fact that the sun and moon are opposed, and so planets challenging that can also be a problem, which, by the way, terms of that, Jupiter went through that sun in last month, in the middle of the month or so. It's pretty clear this guy doesn't have an astrologer, because any astrologer would have told him, if you want to get something through, if you want to get a win, you need to use the Jupiter when it's going through your sun. But he was too busy in Saudi Arabia accepting unacceptable gifts, to be honest, corrupt, self-dealing on a major scale, instead of focalizing that into the politics, which is what he should have done, and then he would have had better odds. Now he's going into a zone where wins are so much tougher. But back to tomorrow, so the moon is in Libra, and so I mentioned the T-square, the opposition. The last place that is also very complicated for him is that Saturn-Venus conjunction that he has on the 12th, and that's where the moon goes through tomorrow. And when you put together the moon in there, and then the fact that Mars is even a little more close to the square, to the MC, he's probably going to be blowing a gasket tomorrow. And most likely outcome is we're going to see fireworks going into the weekend and into next week. And then it's going to be, in that sense, a very active June, because they're trying to get this legislation through as their one and only big win, which is now under serious threat. And so this is what will likely be happening constantly around. How is that doing? What is Musk saying? How is Trump replying, and so forth. And yes, of course, it's true that, as some people have mentioned, maybe some unbelievable revelation comes out as well. There you would probably go more, if you're looking for the big picture, you always suspect a planet like Uranus, for the lightning bolt. And I admit it's well positioned for that too, because Uranus happens to be transiting now in a square to the American moon. And let's face it, it's certainly making the situation really lively as it is. And if maybe it's just that it's just this period where it's like we're all watching, a grade B Netflix drama that is keeping us all interested in that sense, and we're getting some satisfaction that way. But it can amp up. It can be on an even higher level, especially when you realize that definitely in the president's chart, it's wired for trouble. It's way up at the top there, near the zenith degrees, and then squaring the ascendant. And even when it goes into Gemini and spends some time in Gemini this year before backtracking and doing one last little bit in Taurus, the problem for him is that the entry into Gemini, it pulls it away somewhat, but I've seen these patterns many, many times. Once the planet locks in to a degree, if it's a little further of that, you're still experiencing it. The overall pattern doesn't change, and then just comes back and goes over. So he's in a pretty extended period going into next year when the energy is unstable and sudden unexpected things can happen, and many of which are not to his advantage. All right, that's all I have for now, although I suspect the way this is going, I might be making another video on this tomorrow, if not sooner.